Alright, what are we up to over here? Yesterday was a big daf. Sleeper daf. Alright, what are we up to over here? Alright. Alright. Well, let me tell you, what time is it? Alright, see what we can do over here. Alright, how you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Zayin, Daf 17 of Masechta Kiddushin. Friends, how's Masechta Kiddushin going? Pretty nice, right? Okay. So, alright, today we're going to talk about a Hainokah. We're going to talk about when, as has come up in the past few days, that when Eved Ivri goes free, he or she, yes, that's what we're going to learn. Yeah, exactly. He or she get gifts. So, let's talk about these gifts, presents. Okay, we're going to start on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, about 10 lines or so into the Daf, on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph at the 2 dots. Here we go. Tana Rabban, the rabbis taught, Kama Ma'anikim Lo. So how much gifts do we give him? I have to be careful when I say gifts, because it's gifts, it's not gifts, as I made the chiluk the other day. It's not like an animated photo of somebody doing something silly. It's a gift, like a present. Tana Rabbanan, Kama Ma'anikim Lo. Deep breath. How much gifts do we give him? 5 sellers of each type. Shein chomish esrei Sloim divrei meir, which is a total of 15 sellers going to a meir. What are these types? Well, it says Hanek Tanek Lo mi tzoncha mi garnecha umi ikvecha. It says from your flock, from your granary, and from your vineyard. Okay, so those are 3 types, and we're saying 5 sellers of each. 5 times 3 is 15. So again, start from the beginning. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis saw, Kama Ma'anikim Lo, how much gifts do we give him? 5 sellers worth of each of the 3 types, which is 5 times 3, which is 15. Shein chomish esrei Sloim divrei meir. That's a total of 15 sellers. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Shloshim, Rabbi Yehuda says, Taka 30 shekels. Kishloshim shel Eved, like the 30 shekels of an Eved Knaini. If an ox gores to death an Eved Knaini, so there's a flat rate of 30 shekels that goes to the owner of the Eved Knaini, who lost his Eved Knaini. So that's a 30 shekels flat amount. Rabbi Shimon Omer says, Rabbi Shimon Chamishim, that the gifts are worth 50 shekels, ki chamishim sheba arochin, like the 50 shekels of arochin. What's arochin? Who could tell me? Arochin is when a fellow says, the erech of so-and-so is upon me. Now, erech is a fixed amount based on gender and age. So, if you say, I'm going to donate the erech of so and so to the Beis Hamikdash, we say, okay, boy or girl, and how old? And then based on that, it determines how much money you committed to donating. Wow, I feel like I've been eating like a lot more deep breaths recently. Deep breaths. I don't know. Akoponim. So the highest erech is 50 shekels. So says Reb Shimon, the amount of gifts that you give to an Eved Knaini an Eved Ivri or an Amo Ivriya is 50 shekels, which is the highest, the upper range of Arochin Amar. So now we're going to repeat what we just said. Chomesh Sloim mikol min vamin. 5 sellers from each type, shehem chomish esrei sloim divrei meir, that's a total of 15 sellers. That is the opinion of Reb Meir. For Reb Meir minyana asol ashminon. What, Reb Meir is just kind of teaching us math. 5 times 3 is 15. That's right. Reb Meir says 5 sellers from each one. Okay, we know 5 sellers, 3 types. Who could tell me? Quick, snap my finger, go back to 2nd grade math, teacher calls on you, what are you going to say? 5 times 3, quick, you have to memorize it, you have to come in, you have to memorize your multiplication tables. 5 times 3 is 15. Meir is just teaching us multiplication tables. He's teaching us 2nd grade math. He's a 2nd grade math teacher, Meir. What's going on? So, Hakamashmal Mivtzar Mibatzar Hudlo Mivtzar Le Mehai Minyono. What Reb Meir is saying, no, he's teaching us more than second grade math. What he's teaching us is that 15 is not simply 5 times 3. The significance of 15 is that what you have to give to the Eved Ivri who's going free is 15 selas worth. Now, within that breakdown, it doesn't have to be 5 selas worth of each. You can do 6 of this one, and 4 of that one, and 5 of the third. Right? The point of 15 is to say that it just needs to total 15. As long as it adds up to 15, the actual items, whether it's sheep, whether it's grain, whether it's grapes, that you could play around with. Right, so again, mibatzaru delo mivtzar le mehaiminyan. It can't be any less than 15. V'ibatzar le michad mina, v'tafar le me'acher. Now, within 15, if you did a little bit less of that one, a little bit more of that one, leislan ba, all good. My time with Reb Meir. How come Reb Meir says that it's 5 selas of each? So yolav reikam ibechor. Because as a Gzeir Shavav, it says Reikam, right? V'chis shalchenu me'imach lo shalchenu Reikam, and it says Oichid by Bechor, by Pidyon Aben. It says V'leiro ponai Reikam. So Malahalon Chomish Shloim, just like Pidyon Aben is 5 selas, Avkan Chomish Shloim. So Oichidu also over here by the Eved Knaini, the Hainaka, it is the Eved Ivri, the gifts that you give him, it is 5 selas each, and then 5 selas times the 3 items is 15. But maybe I'll say it's a total of 5 selas, not 5 selas of each type. Maybe it's a total of 5 selas. So the Gemara says, look, if you look at the psukim, right, it says, so first it says reikam, and then it says hainek tanik lo, and then it starts going into the details. So it first says reikam, and then it goes into the details. If it would have been fakert, if it would have said reikam at the end, then so if first it said mitzoncha migarnecha mikvecha, and then it said reikam, so the gzeir shava of 5 would apply to all of them in total, so it would be 5 total. But hashad dichsev reikam b'reisha. But now that it says reikam and then it mentions tzoncha, garnecha, yikvecha, shdi reikam atzon, shdi reikam agorin, reikam ayekev. So reikam, the 5 selas, applies to each of the 3, and therefore it's 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. V'nelef reikam me'olas riyah. Why don't we learn out the gzeir shava of reikam by Eved Ivri and reikam by olas riyah, which is 2 shekels? So why don't we say it's a total of 6 shekels, not 15 shekels? So Amakra, the pasuk says, Asher berachecha Hashem elokecha. It says by the Eved Ivri, what does it say? Hanik tanik lo mitzoncha migarnecha mikvecha asher berachecha Hashem elokecha titen lo. That which the Eibishter blessed you. So, blessing is shefa. If we have to choose between 2 and 5, when it comes to blessing, we choose the more, significant amount, which is 5, not 2. Zeo, that's the opinion of Reb Meir. Moving on to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that it's 30 shekels. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shloshim. Rabbi Yehuda says it's 30 shekels, because Shloshim shel Eved. Like the 30 shekels of an Eved, that if Ruvain's ox gores to death Shimon's Eved, so Ruvain pays Shimon 30 shekels. So, my time with Rabbi Yehuda, how come Rabbi Yehuda says that because you pay 30 shekels for an Eved Knaini who's killed by an ox, so we also give 30 shekels worth of gifts when freeing an Eved Ivri? So, Yolif Nesina me'evid. Well, it says over here, right, Asher b'rachecha Hashem elokecha titen lo, by the Eved Ivri, and it also says, Shloshim shkolim yitein la'adonov, I believe. Yes. So, it says Nesina, both by the gifts, as well as by the 30 shekels for an Eved Knaini. So, Yolif Nesina me'evid, ma'laholin shloshim, afkan shloshim, and just like by an Eved Knaini, we're talking about 30 shekels, so Ichidu, also by Eved Ivri, we're talking about gifts worth 30 shekels. V'neilif nesina me'arochin. But why don't we learn out a gzer shavav nesina by arochin? Right? It says, Kasher berachecha Hashem elokecha, what was it? Yitein lo? Titen lo. And it says by arochin, what does it say by arochin? V'nosan esal erkecha bayom mahu kodesh l'Hashem. So it says, V'nosan dar'in, by Arochin. So why don't we learn out the Gzeir Shava from, right, between the gifts and Arochin, and say that it is, right, Malaholun Chamishim, Avkan Chamishim. We say that just like by Arochin it's 50, so here also by the gifts it's 50 shekels. So Chada, so reason number one is because Tafasta Muba lo Tafasta, Tafasta Mua Tafasta. You don't want to take too much, right? Rashi doesn't really explain over here what Tafasta Muba lo Tafasta means in this context. So I'll just explain it. I'll just understand it to mean, you don't want to go for too much, right? You want to go for a more conservative amount. So if you have to choose between 30 and 50, don't overshoot it. Go for the more conservative amount, which is 30 shekels va'od, and more so Eved me'Eved havalei lemelaf. And additionally, we're talking about the value of the gifts of an Eved Ivri. It makes sense to learn out the value of the gifts of an Eved Ivri from an Eved Kanani, not from Arochin. What does Arochin have to do with anything? Eved, that makes sense. Arochin? What does Arochin have to do with Avodim? So therefore it makes sense to say that the 30 shekels of the gifts is learned from the 30 shekels of the value of the Eved Kanani. Reb Shimon Omer, Chamishim kachamishim sheba Arochin. Now Reb Shimon Ataka said that the value of the gifts is 50 shekels. That's learned out from Arochin. My time into Reb Shimon. How come Reb Shimon says this? Because it says, right, Titen Lo over here by Eved Ivri and the gifts, and it says by Arochin, it says V'nosan es ha'er kicha, that you give it. So it says Nesina in both cases. Malaholon chamishim, Afkan chamishim, just like by Arochin, the higher, the upper limit of Arochin is 50 shekels. So here also by the gifts of an Eved Ivri we're talking about 50 shekels. But one second, why are we talking about the upper limit of Arochin, which is 50 shekels? Why don't we go for the lower level, the lower range of Arochin, which is, if I'm not mistaken, 5 shekels. So why don't we say that we're talking about 5 shekels? So well, it says by the gifts, it says Asher Beirachacha Hashem Elokecha. We're talking about blessing, and blessing we go for the larger amount, not for the lower amount, and therefore it's 50, not 5. V'neilach nesina may eved. But one second, Reb Shimon, why are you learning it out from Arochin? Why not learn it out from Eved Kanani? Malaholin shloshim, Afkan shloshim. It says that just like by an Eved Kanani, the amount is 30 shekels. So here also by the Eved Ivri who goes free, the gifts are worth 30 shekels. So Chada, reason number one why we don't, reason number one to say why we should learn it out from Eved is the Tafasta Meruba lo Tafasta, right? You don't, right? If the choice is between 30 and 50, don't overshoot it, rather go for 30. And additionally, Eved me'Eved havalei lemelaf, right? It makes sense that you should learn out Eved Kanani from Eved Ivri, not from Arochin. What does Arochin have? Eved Ivri from Eved Kanani. What does Arochin have to do with anything? So Reb Shimon, Gomer, Reb Shimon says, look, he has a different Gzeir Shava, which is that it says, right, Ki yamuch achicha imach, right, in the context of an Eved Ivri, it says Ki yamuch, when he will be, I guess, hit hard times. So yamuch, and it says also by Arochin ve'imach hu me'er kecho. So it says mach, it says micha in both cases. That is why we learn out Eved Ivri from Arochin. Okay, fine, and therefore it's 50 shekels according to Reb Shimon. Now, Bishlam Reb Meir. So I understand according to Meir how to tzon goren v'yeket. So I understand according to Meir. Meir is the only one who addressed the pasuk that mentions tzon goren yekeb, flock, granary, vineyard. Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon didn't mention tzon goren and yekeb. They just said we learn it out from Reb Yehuda learns it out from Eved Kanani. Reb Shimon learns it out from Arochin. But nobody's addressing what we learn out from tzon, goren, and Yaakov. So El Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, Hai tzon, goren, v'Yaakov, Lamali. How come the pasuk specifies tzon, goren, and Yaakov? So Hami Boy Lehu. So Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon would learn out like in the following brisa. The Chiditanis would learn in the brisa Yachol Lo Yehu Mainikin Elo Mitzon Goren v'Yaakov. Is it possible that we would only give gifts from the flock, from the granary, from the vineyard? Minayin Rav was called over. How do we know to include other things as well? That you can give gifts from other things, not just from flock, granary, and vineyard. Therefore it says that which God blessed you. Okay, so it could be other things as well, anything that God blessed you with. So if it could be anything, then why specify tzon, goren, and yekev? Lo malach, to say to you, matzon, goren, v'yekev, miuchadim, sheyeshnon bichlal brache, av kol sheyeshnon bichlal brache. So just like flock, granary, and vineyard, those are things that are blessed. So also anything that is blessed, yatzu ksafim to Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that would exclude currency, money. Apparently, Reb Shimon says that isn't blessed. Things like meat, right, flock, and produce. Those are blessings. Currency alone is not a blessing. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer Yatzu Produce. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says that it's to the exclusion of mules. I believe that is, I think, Predim are mules, right? Let's go with that. I'm pretty sure that they're mules. Reb Shimon Produce. Mishabchon b'gufay. Reb Shimon says no. Produce. Mules are very blessed. They're stark animals. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov Ksofim Ovid Bu Isker. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says money is a blessed thing. You can do anything with money. You can do business with money. You could make deals with money. Right? Money is a blessed thing. Vitzricha. Okay, fine. So they learn out Son, Goren, and Yakev to teach that these are things that are blessed. Okay, Vitzricha. And we need all three of these. We need Son, Goren, and Yakev. They are all crucial. If we only had sheep, so I would think that gifts are only right, right, animals, things that are alive. Therefore, the pasuk also said granary to say that it's not just but even gedulei karka, even produce. V'ikas of goren and the opposite is also true. If it would only say granary, hava many gedulei karka in by lechaim lo. So I would say, okay, so the only blessed things that we're giving are crops, things that grow from the ground, but not the animals. So kasav rachman atzon. Therefore, it says flock. No, it could also be animals. So animals, grains, vineyards. Yakev lamali. Okay, so why do I need Yakev? Right. We said why we need son. We said why we need goren. What about Yakev? So the ma'alim mutek sof and the ma'alim mutek produce. Well, Reb Shimon would say that Yakev, are blessed things to the exclusion of money, and Reb Shimon ben Elazar says that it is to the exclusion of mules. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Asher berachacha Hashem Elokecha, and that which God blessed you. Yachol nizbarich bayis biglolo ma'nikim lo, lo nizbarich bayis biglolo ein ma'nikim lo. Fact the Gemara, when it says Asher berachacha Hashem Elokecha, right? It says that when your Eved Ivri goes free, so you give him gifts like God blessed you. So if we're connecting the gifts that we give to the Eved Ivri to the blessing that the Adon had received, so maybe I'll say, look, if in fact the Adon received blessing while on account of the Eved Ivri, so then you give gifts to the Eved Ivri. If he did not receive blessing on account of the Eved Ivri, maybe then I might think then you wouldn't give him any gifts, right? Based on the blessing that you received while he was with you, give him. You received blessing, you give him gift. You didn't receive blessing, don't give him gifts. So again, that which the Eibishter blesses you, is it possible that only in the event that the Adon's house was blessed on account of the Eved Ivri, then we give him gifts. But if the household of the Adon was not blessed on account of the Eved Ivri, then we don't give him gifts. Therefore it says, no, you shall surely give him gifts, mikol makom, regardless of whether or not your house was particularly blessed because of his service. Well then, if we're giving it to him regardless, then what's the point of that which he blessed, right? That, relative to the blessing. So I call if he bracha tein lo, means that, look, at the very least, you have to give him the baseline amount, whether it's 15 according to Reb Meir, according to Reb Yehuda 30, according to Reb Shimon 50, right? You have to give him the base amount. But if while he was, working for you, he, there was quite a bit of blessing in the house, so then give him more. Give him more than just the baseline. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Dvarim kichsov. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, no, we take it literally. Nisbarach b'ayis biglalo ma'nikimbo. If when he was there and he was working as an Eved Ivri, if there was a lot of blessing in the house because of him, so then give him gifts. Lo nisbarach b'ayis biglalo. But if during his service there was no blessing in the house of the Adon, ein ma'nikin lo, then we don't give him gifts. Then what do you learn out from Hanik Tanik? Nothing. We don't learn out anything from Hanik Tanik. So what do we learn out from Hanik? So why does it say Hanik Tanik if we don't learn out anything from it? Because the Torah is speaking like the people speak. Hanik Tanik. That's like a normal thing to say, Hanik Tanik. So therefore, the Torah is just saying Hanik Tanik, but don't read into it too much. If when the Eved Ivri was there was blessing in the house, give him gifts. If there was no blessing in the house, you don't need to give him any gifts. Dang, it looks like I'm having issues with the microphone again, which is kind of annoying. Okay, so now, hopefully it'll hold for the next 20 minutes. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Eved Ivri oved es habein ven oved es habas. In Eved Ivri, so if the Adon dies, so then if there are sons, so then, right, the Eved Ivri is meant to work for 6 years. If in the middle the Adon dies, so the Eved Ivri will continue working for the son. However, if there are no sons, the Eved Ivri does not work for the daughters. So again, Tanar Rabbanan Eved Ivri Oved es habein. If the Adon dies, then the Eved Ivri will work for the son. Ve'eno Oved es habas, but he will not work for the daughter. Amo ha'ivriya. In Amo Ivriya, Eino Ovedes Lo Sabein V'Lo Sabas. In Amo Ivriya, if the Adon dies, the Amo Ivriya Memele goes free. She doesn't work. She doesn't continue to work. Hanirtza, a doorman, V'Animkar Lo Oved Kochavim, or a Yid who was sold to an Oved Kochavim, Eino Oved Lo Sabein V'Lo Sabas, does not work for the son or for the daughter. So basically, the only Eved Ivri who continues to work post the death of the Adon is an Eved Ivri, not a doorman, not an Amo Ivriya. They go free if the Adon dies, and Eved Ivri will continue working for the son, but not for any of the other heirs. Omar, we just said Eved Ivri Oved es habein ve'eno Oved es habas. So an Eved Ivri will work for the son of the Adon, but not for the daughters. Minoani mili. How do we know this? The Tanu Rabbanan, that the rabbis taught Va'avodcha sheish shanim, that the Eved Ivri will work for you for 6 years. Licha v'lo liyorish. He'll work for you for 6 years, but not any of your heirs other than your son, right? Not your brother, not anybody else. Ata omer licha v'lo liyorish. 1 second. Is that the correct diuk? Is that diuk really that he will work for you and not for the yorish? Oenu elo licha v'lo lebein. Or maybe what it means is that he will work for you and not for your son. Kishu omer sheishanim yavod. 1 second. When it says that the Eved Ivri will work for 6 years, Harei leven amor, that is coming to include even to your son, right? If the Adon dies, he works for the son. Hamani mekayim ba'avodcha sheishanim. So what do we learn out? That he will work for you for 6 years. Licha v'lo liyorish. He will work for you to the exclusion of any other heirs. For example, if there's no children, the brother. Okay, so we say that an Eved Ivri, if the Adon dies, works for the son, does not work for the brother or for the daughters. How come we're saying that the Eved Ivri will continue working for the son, but not for the brother? Well, because I can give you examples where the son stands in for the father. For example, Yi'ud. Who could tell me what Yi'ud is? Yi'ud is that when a fellow acquires an Amma Ivriya, he has the option to marry her. Either he could marry her, or his son could marry her. So we see that the son can take the place of the father when it comes to Yiyud. Additionally, by Stei Achuza, who can tell me what Stei Achuza is? Stei Achuza is a concept that came up in Masechta Gittin in a slightly different way. What it means is that, right, if you have Stei Achuza, right, you have right, remember when the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, they divided up the land, and by lottery and whatever, the land that you got was yours, and you pass it down to generations, etc., and it stays in the family. Now, what happens in the event that somebody is makdish his property to the Beis HaMikdash, but he doesn't redeem it? So eventually, the treasury sells it to somebody else. Now, what happens during the Jubilee year? Now, normally in the Jubilee year, all land reverts back to its original owners. However, in this case, he was makdish's property. He didn't redeem it. The treasury then sold it to somebody else. Comes the Jubilee year, the property does not go back to the original owner who was makdish's field and never redeemed it. It goes back to the temple and it's divided among the priests. Now, however, if the person who bought it from the treasury was the son of the person who owned the field, if the son bought it from the treasury, well then it remains within the family. So we see that the son redeeming the field is like the father redeeming the field, or is, in place of the father redeeming the field. So we gave two examples where the son can kind of stand in for the father. So it makes sense to say that the Eved Ivri would continue working for the son, not for the brother. But Adarabba, the Gemara suggests, I'll say fakert. My be'ani sa'och. I will say that it's the brother who the Eved Ivri should continue working for, not the son. Shekein kam tachas aviv liyibum. After all, when it comes to Yibum, right, if Reuven dies and there are no kids, Shimon, right, Sarah now goes to Shimon. He kind of takes the place of his brother as Sarah's husband. To which the Gemara says that's not a good proof to say that Shimon takes the place of his brother Reuven when it comes to Yibum, and therefore that makes him a better option for the Eved Ivri to go to. Klum yesh Yibum eleb makom she'ein ben, hayesh ben en Yibum. Remember, Shimon only stands in place of Reuven when Reuven doesn't have any children. But if there is a son, if there are children, then that is a higher priority than the brother. Then there wouldn't be Yibum. So really, you see that the son is the higher priority. If there's a son, there's no Yibum at all. So therefore, that is not a good proof, and it is the son who is a better stand-in for the father, and therefore, if there's an Eved Ivri and the Adon dies, the Eved Ivri would continue working for the son. At the time of the Iko Aha Pircha, but 1 second. So, it's very nice that was a strong argument, right? You said, right, that, look, Yibum only exists when there's no son. If there's a son, there's no Yibum B'chlal. So you see, the son is the higher priority. But even without that argument, can we still say we gave two reasons, two examples, two contexts where the son stands in for the father, but only one context where the brother stands in for the father. The two contexts of the son were Yi'ud as well as Stei Achuza. Whereas by the brother it was only Yibum. So even aside from the argument of that there's only Yibum when there's no son, but if there's a son then there's no Yibum at all, still there were two reasons going for the son versus only one in favor of the brother. So ha lavachi, if not for the fact that we had this thing about, there's only Yibum when there's no son, the Ika ha Pircha, ha lavachi adif, ach adif, but if not for this question, then we would think to favor the brother, v'tepukli, but I should still be able to learn out, that in favor of the son, there are two things, right, Yi'ud and Stei Achuza, whereas in favor of the brother, there's only one, which is Yibum. So Stei Achuza nami mehai pircha hu dekonafkale litana klum yeshibum el mokum she'en bein. So the thing is, there aren't really two things that are explicitly going in favor of the son. Yi'ud, yes, definitely. The pasuk says v'milivno yi'adenu. Yes, definitely the son, can kind of take the place of the father when it comes to Yi'ud. However, who is to say? How do we know that when it comes to the Stei Achuza, if the son buys it from the treasury, then it stays within the family? Maybe it's if the brother buys it from the treasury, it stays in the family. It's not clear that it's specifically the son. The only reason why we know that it's the son is because we give priority to the son based on this exact argument, which is the only reason to say that the brother should be able to stand in, would be because the brother could stand in for the father when it comes to Yibum, but Yibum only exists when there's no son. The son is the higher priority. So Kilu, everything really does hinge upon this argument. The only reason why I even know that by Stei Achuza the son is the one who can buy it from the treasury is based on this argument about the son being a higher priority than the Yibum of the brother. So therefore, really this argument was crucial. We wouldn't have had those two other contexts if not for this argument. We would have only had one. We would have only had Yud. Okay, fine. Amo Ivria Eino Ovedes Lo Sabain V'Lo Sabas. We said that an Amo Ivria goes free when the Adon dies and does not serve the son or the daughter. She just goes free when the Adon dies. Minan Emilia, how do we know this? Amar Rav Pada, on my cross says Rav Pada, the pasuk says, Ve'af la'amoscha taisa kain. Right, it says by the nirtza. It says in the right. It says v'lakachta samartzev v'nasata ba'oznu v'adelis v'aylucha le'ever olam. Right, that you make the guy a doorman. Ve'af la'amoscha taisa kain, and also do this to your maidservants. Okay, hikisha akosov lenirtza, that we're comparing a maidservant to a doorman. Manirtza eno oved lo esabein v'lo esabas, just like a doorman goes free when the adon dies, as we're going to learn in a few minutes. So manirtza eno oved lo esabein v'lo esabas, av amo ivria eno ovedes lo esabein v'lo esabas. So just like the doorman goes free when the adon dies and does not work for the son or the daughter, so oichet and amo ivria, when the adon dies, she goes free. One second. Taisakain is coming to teach that an amo ivria does not work, right? That an amo ivria goes free when the adon dies. Taisakain is needed for the following brayse. Taisakain lahainik, that she gets gifts, just like an eved ivri. Ata Omer Lahainik. Wait, is this really saying that an Amma Ivria gets gifts? So Eno Ella Liritzia. Or maybe it's to say that just like you can have a doorman, you can also have a doorwoman. Kishu Omer Ve'im Omer Yomar HaEved. It says if the Eved wants to continue being an Eved, Velo Amma Ivria, but not in Amma HaIvria, Hare Ritzia Amor. So we see that specifically it's a doorman, not a doorwoman. So what do you also do for an Amma Ivria? Lehanik, to give gifts. Okay, so if Vaflamoscha Taisakin is talking about giving gifts, then it's not talking about that she goes free when the Adon dies. So Imkin Nichtov Krod La'amoscha Kain, right? Va'aflamoscha Kain. Ma La'amoscha Taise Kain. Shmasmina Taiti, we learn out two things. We learn out that when the Adon dies, she goes free. We learn out that she gets the gifts. Hanirtza v'animkar lo v'kuchavim. So we said a doorman and a yid who is sold to an ovid kuchavim as an eved ivri. Eno ovid lo esabein v'lo esabas. So also the doorman and also this yid who is sold to an eved to an ovid kuchavim, but like a ger toshav, an ovid kuchavim who follows the rules that are laid out in the society in the Jewish society that he lives in. So then, if the Adon dies in both of those cases by the doorman and when he's sold to an Ovid Kuchavim, the Eved Ivri would not continue being an Eved Ivri with the son or the daughter of the Adon. Nirtza dichsiv, a doorman, as it's written, V'rotza Adona v'sa'ozno, b'martzea, he puts he nails his ear to the door, V'avoda la'olam, and he vavado, and he works for the Adon, the Olam v'lo esabein v'lo esabas, but not the heirs. Nimkar lo v'kuchavim minayin. How do I know that an Eved Ivri who is sold to an Ovid Kuchavim does not work for the heirs? Amar Chizki Amar Kra v'chishavim koneu v'lo yorshe koneu. Right, that when it talks about redeeming an Eved Ivri from an Ovid Kuchavim, it says v'chishavim koneu, that that you negotiate with the one who purchased him, v'lo yorshe koneu, but not with his heirs, because an Eved Ivri does not work for the heirs of an Ovid Kuchavim. Amar Rava says, Rava Dvar Torah, Ovid Kuchavim, Yorish is Oviv. So says Rava that Mida Oraise, an Ovid Kuchavim inherits his father. Right? If you have an Ovid Kuchavim, his father passes away, he inherits his father. Mida Oraise, Shnemar, as the pasuk says, V'chishavim koneu, v'lo yorshe koneu. That by an Eved Ivri who sold to an Oved Kochavim, it says that you will negotiate with Koneu, with the one who purchased him, with the Oved Kochavim, but not with his heirs. Michlal de Islay Yorshim, which then implies that he has heirs to negotiate with. So we see that an Oved Kochavim inherits his father Midoraisa. Ger es Oved Kochavim. Now, if you have a fellow who converts to Judaism and his father did not, and then his father passes away, so the convert inherits his father who's an Oved Kochavim, enu midivrei Torah elo midivrei sofrim. He inherits his father who's an Oved Kochavim, not midoraisa but midirabonon. The Tanan, as we learn in the Mishnah, ger ve'Oved Kochavim she'arshu savim Oved Kochavim. So if you have a fellow who converts to Judaism, he's got a brother who did not convert to Judaism, and his father did not convert to Judaism. His father passes away. Now he's dividing up the estate with his brother. His brother's an Oved Kochavim. He's a Yid. So ger yachol lomar Oved Kochavim. So the proselyte can say to his brother who's an Oved Kochavim, Tol ata avodas Kochavim. You take the getchkis, vani mos, and I'll take the cash. Tol ata yain nesech. You take the yain nesech, right? The libations or wines. And v'ani peiros, I'll take the fruits. So when they're dividing up the estate, the ger, the proselyte, the yid, can request that he doesn't get any of the getchkis. Now, mishabou l'rshus ger, but once they come into the property of the ger, osir, then he can no longer say, actually, you know what? Let me trade this for that, because then he's getting benefit from getchkis. But prior to them coming into his possession, he can negotiate on them, which implies that prior to going into his possession, they don't automatically belong to him. Now, and if it enters your mind that a ger would inherit his father who's an Oved Kochavim midoraisa, well then, that even if these items did not yet go into his property, he automatically would inherit them when his father dies. Right? If midoraisa he inherits his father who's an Oved Kochavim, so then automatically when his father passes away, they would belong to him, and he wouldn't be able to negotiate with his brother, that his brother takes the getchkis. Immediately they would belong to him. So ela midar abanon. So rather, it's midar abanon, and they don't automatically belong to him. Only once they come into his possession do they belong to him, and at that point he cannot negotiate. But prior to then, he can request that he doesn't get any of the getchkis. Gezeru da'avad rabbanon. The rabbis made this gezerah shemiyachzor l'suro because we want to avoid a situation where you have a fellow who converts to Judaism. His father passes away. He doesn't get any of the inheritance, and he says, you know what? And then he ends up going off the derech because he wants this inheritance. So we say, in order to avoid that, we say, look, he can inherit it midar abanon, and he won't have any thoughts to run away after the inheritance. Tanin Amiochi, we also learn in a verse like this: Bamidvar mamurim kishayarshu avo kishanishtatfu aser. That we say that when the ger can ask that his brother gets to take the getchkis and he'll take the cash upon inheritance of al kishanishtatfu, but already once they divided it up, also at that point it is not allowed. So by inheritance, they could divide it up, and that's okay because he doesn't automatically get it midoraisa. But if they go into some kind of a partnership together or something, and they have to divide things up, then it gets more sticky. Fine. Now, Oved Kochavim es hager. So what if you have a fellow who converts to Judaism, but his children did not? So now his son is an Oved Kochavim, but he is a Yid. The ger es hager. Or what if you have a father and son who converted to Judaism together, but technically speaking, they're not related, right? Because Gershon is guy katan shenola dami, right? It's like you're reborn. So technically, they're not related. So eino lo midivrei Torah lo midivrei sofrim. So in that case, the son would not inherit his father at all. Not midoraisa, not midorabon. The Tana is we learn in the Brisa, love emos min ager shenizgairu bon of imo. That if a fellow borrows money from a convert whose children also converted with him, he doesn't need to pay the children because the children don't inherit the loan, the debt, the money. V'im hechzer, And if he does return the money to the children, to the heir, to the, what he's considering to be the heirs, the Chacham aren't like happy that he did that per se. Like there was really no reason to have to do it at all. Like they don't inherit the loan. So one second, we have a brayso that says that itaka is a good thing. If you pay the kids, it is a good thing. So it depends. If the children were born when the father had not yet converted, so then, or then I guess it probably matters for like the mother as well. But if they were conceived and born not Jewish, so then there's no need to pay the children. But if they were conceived as not yet as Yidden, but they were born as Yidden, well, in that case, then they would inherit their father and inherit that loan, and that would be a good thing to pay them back. Ovid Kochavim Yoresh Es Aviv Dvar Torah says Reb Chia bar Oven Reb Yochanan that an Ovid Kochavim inherits his father, as we said earlier, right? Forgetting about converting and stuff like that. An Ovid Kochavim inherits his father. Dvar Torah Midoraisa V'chsiv Ki Yerusha LeEsov Nasati Esar Seir, that I gave the Mount Seir as an inheritance to Esau. V'dilma Yisrael Mumashani. But one second, maybe Esau is considered a Yid who does Averis, but not in Ovid Kochavim. So rather from here, Ki Livnei Lot Nasati Es Ar Yerusha, that I've given Ar as an inheritance to the children of Lot, who I guess was not at all considered a Yid. I guess he didn't come from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov even. So you see that there's inheritance by the Ovid Kochavim. Rav Chia bar Oven, my time lo Rava. Why doesn't Rav Chia bar Oven learn out from Rava's pasuk of V'chishav im Koneu? Right, and we said not im Yorshav, implying that there's Yorshim for Ovdei Kochavim. So Miksiv V'chishav im Koneu v'lo im Yorshei Koneu. Well, it doesn't say specifically in the pasuk v'lo im Yorshei Koneu. It's not explicit that there is Yerusha in the context of Ovdei Kochavim. V'rav my time lo Omer ki Rav Chia bar Oven. Why doesn't Rav hold like Rav Chia bar Oven to learn it out from Lot? Well, maybe the only reason that there is inheritance by the children of Lot is out of honor for Avraham Avinu, but it doesn't necessarily teach that there is inheritance when it comes to Ovdei Kochavim. Wow. Okay. That was Daf Yud Zayin of Masechta Kiddushin. I hope that the audio was okay. This mic is really kind of making me nervous and throwing me off a shtickle. But we talked about the gifts and the value of the gifts. There's Machlokes of Meir, Reb Yehuda, and Reb Shimon. Reb Meir says it's 15 shekels. Reb Yehuda says 30 shekels. Reb Shimon says it's 50 shekels. And then we learned about that an Eved Ivri would, if the Adon dies, an Eved Ivri, who's still within his 6 years, would continue working for the son, but not for any of the other heirs. A doorman, an Amo Ivriya, an Eved Ivri who was sold to an Ovid Kochavim, all of them would completely go free when the Adon passes away. Friends, that was Daf Yud Zayin of Masechta Kiddushin. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.